What if I told you that one of the most powerful men in history, a man who ruled over millions, who had the Roman world at his feet, killed his pregnant wife in a blind fit of rage, and then found a young boy, not yet a man, barely even a teenager, and forced him to become the living shadow of the woman he murdered? He didn't just dress the boy up, he had him castrated, changed, reconstructed, all to satisfy a sick fantasy, a haunting obsession, a love story that defies logic, compassion, and humanity. This isn't a dark legend. This isn't a myth from the corners of forgotten history. This really happened. This is the story of Emperor Nero and a boy named Sporus, a tale so twisted, so cruel, and so utterly disturbing that even the blood-soaked annals of Roman history struggle to contain it. You're about to hear how a Roman emperor took madness to the next level, destroying a child to resurrect a woman he could never forgive himself for killing. Stay till the end, because the final moments of this story are just as haunting as the beginning. The year was 54 AD. Rome, the eternal city, buzzed with uncertainty. The previous emperor, Claudius, was dead, poisoned, it was whispered, by his own wife. And now, a 16-year-old boy was about to become ruler of the most powerful empire on earth. His name was Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, but at that time, he was simply Nero, the golden boy with golden hair raised by one of the most ruthless women in Roman politics, his mother, Agrippina the Younger. She had plotted, manipulated, and even murdered to see her son on the throne. She married Claudius, her own uncle, just to secure Nero's rise. Then, when her husband became inconvenient, she allegedly fed him poisoned mushrooms to clear the way. From the moment Nero stepped into power, he was a paradox. On one hand, he wanted to be loved by the people. He reduced taxes, held lavish games, mingled with the public. He composed poetry, sang in theaters, and dreamed of artistic immortality. But behind the charm was something darker, something broken. Nero had grown up in a household of betrayal and fear. He watched as political enemies were exiled, tortured, executed. He learned early that love was a weapon and power could justify anything. When he began his reign, some hoped he would be a philosopher king. But what Rome got was a boy who would become a monster. The love of his life, Poppaea Sabina. Poppaea Sabina. Her name echoed through the marble halls of Roman elite society. She was beautiful, yes, radiant, regal, seductive. But she was also clever, ambitious, and dangerously persuasive. Nero was married at the time to Octavia, daughter of the former emperor Claudius. But Octavia was quiet, traditional, not someone who could manipulate Nero the way Poppaea could. Poppaea entered Nero's life like a flame enters dry wood. She was married to a military commander, Otho, but her eyes were set higher, on the throne, and on the boy who sat on it. She flattered Nero. She teased him. She made him believe he was divine, destined, chosen by the gods. And Nero, vain and insecure, drank in every word. He cast Octavia aside, first with exile, then with execution, and placed Poppaea beside him as Empress of Rome. Their love was public, lavish, wild. He built golden statues in her honor. She was bathed in perfumes from the East. Entire days of public celebration were held just to praise her beauty. But it was never a safe love. It was volatile, obsessive, and increasingly violent. Then one night, Poppaea, now pregnant with Nero's child, argued with him in private. What happened next is one of the most disturbing moments in Roman imperial history. Nero, furious, kicked her hard in the stomach. She collapsed, writhing in pain. The unborn child was lost, and not long after, so was Poppaea. She died in agony. And Nero, the man who had adored her, praised her, worshipped her, was the one who killed her. But this wasn't the end of their story. In Nero's mind, it was just the beginning. After Poppaea's death, Nero changed. He became withdrawn, erratic, melancholic. He avoided the Senate. He stopped eating regularly. He stopped singing, the thing he loved most. He would walk the palace halls alone, whispering her name. He kept her perfume bottles by his bedside. He mourned not just the woman, but the fantasy he had crafted around her. The guilt was unbearable, but instead of confronting it, Nero tried to undo it. Then one day, he saw a boy. The child was likely a slave, young, smooth-skinned with gentle features, a resemblance to Poppaea that struck Nero like lightning. This boy's name was Sporus, and in Nero's disturbed mind, a grotesque idea formed. What if Poppaea could live again? What if this boy, this innocent, voiceless child, could become her? There are few moments in history more horrifying than this one. Nero, the Emperor of Rome, ordered that Sporus be castrated. This wasn't just physical mutilation, it was the total erasure of identity. The operation was brutal, risky, often deadly, but Sporus survived, and once he had recovered, Nero began the transformation. The emperor renamed him Sabina. He was dressed in silks, perfumed, painted, taught how to move, how to speak, how to stand. Not like a boy, but like a queen. He was paraded through Rome, wearing Poppaea's old jewelry. He was introduced to foreign dignitaries as Nero's empress. And the most haunting detail? They held a public ceremony, a mock wedding. Nero placed a veil over Sporus's head, kissed him in front of a crowd, and declared him his wife. Sporus was no longer a person, he was a replacement, a living, breathing puppet of a woman long gone. And he slept in the same bed as the man who destroyed his body and stole his soul. To the Roman aristocracy, Nero's descent into madness was now undeniable. They whispered behind his back, they sent letters of warning to provinces, they mocked the emperor, who performed in theaters and married a boy dressed as a ghost. But no one dared to challenge him, not yet. Meanwhile, Nero clung to Sporus with a twisted, suffocating love. They traveled together to Greece. Nero competed in Olympic Games and demanded he be declared the winner. He sang to thousands, and Sporus sat beside him, dressed as the empress. Some historians suggest Nero truly believed he had raised Poppaea from the dead. Others say he simply couldn't live with the guilt, and so he forced the world to pretend she was still alive. And Sporus, he played his role. He smiled, he sat still, because if he resisted, he would likely be killed. What's worse than dying is living in someone else's skin. But Nero's empire was collapsing. In 68 AD, revolts broke out across the provinces. The army, once loyal, now doubted his ability to rule. Rome's treasury was drained by his endless luxuries and artistic ambitions. The Senate turned on him. The Praetorian Guard deserted him. Nero, once the most powerful man in the world, now had no allies. No support, no future. He fled Rome with a handful of loyal servants, among them Sporus. They took shelter in a countryside villa. Nero, once draped in gold, now wore a simple tunic. He begged his companions to help him die. No one would. So Nero took a dagger and with Sporus by his side drove it into his own throat. His final words? "What an artist dies in me." The artist, not the tyrant, not the killer, not the man who shattered lives for his fantasies. Nero died as he lived, worshipping his own reflection. You'd think this was the end of the nightmare for Sporus, but history doesn't always let its victims rest. After Nero's death, Sporus was taken in by Otho, Nero's former friend and Poppaea's ex-husband. Otho treated Sporus like a royal widow, dressed him in gowns, referred to him as Sabina. Once again, Sporus was forced into a role he never chose. Then came Vitellius, a brutal, mocking general who seized power during the chaos that followed. Vitellius planned to make an example of Sporus. He arranged for a public show in the Colosseum. Sporus would be dressed in a bride's gown, marched before the crowd, and then assaulted by a wild animal. A grotesque parody of a royal wedding. But before the day came, Sporus chose to end his own life, in silence, alone. A boy who was never allowed to be himself, finally claimed his own ending. The story of Nero and Sporus is not just about madness. It is about power without limits, about what happens when a person's grief becomes a weapon, when obsession erases reality, and when an innocent soul becomes a canvas for someone else's broken dream. Sporus was never a queen, never a wife, never even truly a person in the eyes of his masters. He was a mirror, and the man who looked into that mirror was the most dangerous emperor Rome ever knew. Remember this story, because history's darkest tales often begin with love. If this story shocked you, disturbed you, or made you question the power of unchecked authority, then hit the like button, share this video, and subscribe for more dark and true stories from history's shadows. Because sometimes the past is more horrifying than any fiction ever written.